I wonder, do you believe in angels? Throughout the Bible, we read about angels doing many things for God. They're his messengers and his mediators. Yet we rarely seem to talk about them. And I wonder, is this because we feel embarrassed to actually admit that we believe in those supernatural beings? Yet they are as real as God. Or is it because many of us will have had no experience of them? I think it's possibly the latter. After all, we are only really confident in talking about those things that we've had experience of, aren't we? We can relate more easily to others when we have that shared experience. Now, many people say they've seen angels. Often this has been in a time of crisis or despair. They've been seen by the side of those who are dying and bring comfort to both them and the onlookers. On Facebook and YouTube, you can see video clips which show angels. They may be helping out in accidents by lifting up cars so that people can be rescued. Or they may be seen in hospitals. In many clips, these angelic figures do not necessarily look like us, but are somewhat shadowy outlines. Yet quite often, they do appear to be doing the unimaginable. It's also been reported that when they do appear, they bring much needed peace to the situation. Now, I haven't had an encounter with an angel, but when you listen to the stories of those who have, there is a conviction in their voices and a feeling of wonderment which is quite hard to ignore. Now, often when we think about angels, I'm sure that most of us will think of them as being dressed in white and having wings. We may think of them as blowing trumpets and delivering the Christmas message, singing in heavenly choirs, and generally being there to help us. We often talk about having a guardian angel who watches over us all the time, don't we? Indeed, in a magazine I recently received, there was a delightful car air freshener in the shape of an angel, and on it was printed the words, "Don't drive faster than your guardian angel can fly." Now, when you look at various depictions of angels in art, especially of Michael, then we've very often seen a warrior angel, dressed in full armour and wielding a sword. In the book of Revelation, we hear how Michael and his angels defeated Satan and his angels and threw them out of heaven. So Michael is the leader of a veritable army of angels and has come to be seen as the angel who opposes all evil and destructive forces in both heaven and on earth. In the book of Jude, he's called the Archangel Michael, and is only one of two named angels in the Bible, the other being Gabriel. We do, however, know names of other angels, such as Raphael and Uriel. But on the whole, angels in the Bible are not mentioned by name. They're just referred to as angels. In Genesis, we read of Jacob's dream about a stairway reaching up to heaven, and the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. It's an image which tells us that angels exist in order to give us messages from God and for them to take our replies back up to God. Not that God really needs these types of mediators, because he's already present and knows our thoughts, but we perhaps would be too in awe of God to really listen to him if he appeared in front of us. Once again, God is looking out for us, his children. In the Gospels, we hear that the angels looked after Jesus when he went into the wilderness, and Jesus himself makes mention of angels many times. Now, these days in our modern society, we often talk about people as being angels. In the late 1970s, you may remember that there was a popular TV show called Angels, which focused on the life of student nurses. And even today, nurses are very much seen as angels, as are all those people who work in the various caring professions. They all look after the health and welfare of others and in many ways deserve to be called angels, as they too have our best interests at heart and want to help us. Now, if we were to meet an angel, it's most likely that we would not recognise the person as being one. In the letter to Hebrews, we are warned not to forget to entertain strangers, for by doing so, some people have entertained angels without knowing it. After all, if we were confronted by a heavenly being, all dressed in white and with wings, how exactly would we react? Probably not very well. Don't forget how the shepherds reacted when an angel appeared to them to tell them about the birth of Jesus. They were terrified and had to be told to not to be afraid. I dare say we too would be terrified. And would we be able to remember anything they said to us? Let's hope we would. But as a result of us probably being terrified on seeing an angel in all its splendour, I believe that God makes them appear to us as normal, everyday folk, so we won't be terrified, so that we will listen to them and perhaps even take heed of what they're saying to us, which is why the writer of Hebrews gave us that warning of being kind to strangers. And that same person is insistent in saying that God and his Son Jesus are above the angels and always will be, which makes some people believe that some of the Christians to which this letter was written may have been or were considering worshipping angels, or at least exalting them above their status. And yet some interpreters suggest that the worship of angels was not unknown in early Judaism and Christianity, and that this is a warning to those people that they must not compromise their devotion to the living God by worshipping other heavenly beings as well. And yet others have suggested that what these early believers wanted to do was to participate in the angelic worship of God in heaven, not to worship the angels, but to worship alongside them. And yet there is a similar warning given in the book of Revelation, where John says that we should not worship angels. It goes, "At this I fell at his feet to worship him," him being an angel. But he said, "Do not do it. I am a fellow servant with you and with your brothers who hold to the testimony of Jesus. Worship God." So angels are heavenly, supernatural beings, and as such are possibly to be feared, although there is a strong indication that they certainly mean no harm to us and they're here to help us. Yet I do wonder what happened to all those angels who with Satan were pushed out of heaven and hurled down to the earth. Now I know that we don't tend to talk much about Satan or the devil, but we do have to admit that he exists. And when we see on the news all of the downright evil things that are taking place around the world, then surely that has to be a sign of his existence. Now, thankfully, the majority of people are good, and as usual, it's the small minority that are bad. Yet they have to be led into these evil ways by others, and perhaps that is where the devil and his angels come into their own. They sway those who are weak-willed, those who are greedy and self-centered, those who are perhaps misguided in their outlook, and turn them into people who revel in doing harm to others, no matter the consequences of their actions. So we really do need to heed the warnings of John and the writer of Hebrews to worship God alongside the angels. We need to trust in the word of God, know that we will inherit salvation and one day enter the kingdom of heaven with all other believers. And in the meantime, let us trust in the protection of our own guardian angels. That is, if you believe in angels.